Lamb, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia Small Business Development Center is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 26 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one advising services are available at no charge. Today's webinar, How to Manage Your WordPress Website, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. Please mark your calendars for the next webinar in our Digital Bootcamp series, Mobile Apps, How to Plan, Execute, and Launch, on August 25th at noon. And I'll drop that registration link into the chat momentarily. We are recording today's presentation and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants, everyone's microphone is muted and the chat feature is turned off. But if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box and we will address them at the end of the session, time permitting. We have also enabled the live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your own meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session, Cameron Nelson, CEO of Tenzing Startup Consultants. Cameron has over 21 years of experience in technology and is a senior tech consultant in Silicon Valley, helping Fortune 500 companies improve their digital marketing and e-commerce. At the same time, he founded several tech companies, including a software as a service website for tree preservation and a blockchain platform for nonprofits. Cameron is accomplished in language, culture, has an MBA and MA. He believes new technology products have the ability to help shape our world for the better. Please join me in welcoming Cameron Nelson.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session on how to build a WordPress website. I'm working with several clients right now building websites in WordPress, and some of them are also having apps developed at the same time. So the conversation of building a website for your company, building an app for your company is sometimes interrelated. And the next presentation we have next month is about the app side of it. So if you're at all interested about building apps and how that ties in with building your website in WordPress, feel free to join the session next month because I'll be giving that insight into the app side of this. And as I've seen, many businesses this year are doing both of those in tandem. So it can be a powerful combination. But for the presentation today, we're going to be focusing on what is a WordPress website? What does it bring to your business? How can your business benefit from it? How does WordPress differ from some of the other options out there as far as a platform to build your website on? So those are some of the topics we'll be covering. I look forward to answering your questions at the end of the presentation, so you can type those into the Q&A box at any time, and we'll get through as many of those as we have time for at the end. So with that, let's jump right into it. What are the goals for the presentation today? Well, first off, we want to discover and talk about what WordPress is and what it isn't, and if it's the best platform and solution for you and your business to be using. Second, I'm going to discuss a part of WordPress called Elementor, which is an editing interface and one that is the most commonly used. So this is to help you get an idea of what it looks like to edit a website that's built in Elementor, because I get asked that question quite frequently. Third is I'm going to show you the best places to find your WordPress theme and how to initially configure it and set it up. A theme is just the starting look and feel and the template of a website. You don't have to start with a theme, but most smart people do because it saves you about 90% of the time of building your website. So I'm going to talk about how you find your theme and get started using it. And lastly, I'm going to show you how to customize everything you need to on your WordPress website to get it ready to launch and to work really well. We're going to talk about the latest influences and AI enhancements that WordPress has, and just finish up the conversation with launching your website and getting it out there to the world. First off, let's just give an overview of what is WordPress and should your business be using it, because it's not the only tool out there and it's not the only one you should be considering. I think overall we can all agree that we've seen a shift to websites and your digital presence being ever more important in the success of your business. And I think WordPress is a great tool for creating this website for your business. I think the website is probably the most important thing you do for your business as far as your online presence goes. You know, you can also have ads, You could have your products up for sale on Amazon or Etsy or eBay. But if you don't have that website for your business, it's kind of you're missing the key component to really make your business look premium, look legitimate, and helping you get that revenue that you want. Now, based on the latest research, WordPress is running 43% of websites worldwide. This is a huge number of websites. If you think about all the websites globally, 43% are running on WordPress. So it goes to show you how dominant WordPress is in this space. And that comes with a lot of advantages and it comes with a few disadvantages, which we'll talk about. But you can rest assured if you're using WordPress, you're going to be on board with the largest website building platform. You could also call this an ecosystem, if you will, in the world. Now, not everybody knows that WordPress started over a decade ago as a simple way for people to create blogs, back when blogs was one of the primary things people and businesses did. They just had a blog. You can still create a blog in WordPress, but honestly, not many people do. Its primary purpose has shifted towards a general website for many different purposes. And that's why I call it a robust website platform, because you really can create anything here. You have artists with their digital artwork, you have a business selling e-commerce, you could have maybe you're a video production company, you have all your videos and samples, any kind of website you can see out there, any website you can envision, you can basically build in WordPress. Now, if it's your first time ever building your own website, and I would guess about 50% of you are in this category, there's going to be a bit of a learning curve. You know, WordPress has its own menus, its own systems, and it's going to take you, I would say, 5 to 10 hours of invested time to learn about that. I'm going to give you the basics today, but I don't think it's a problem for anybody if you're willing to invest the time. So some of the benefits of using WordPress are that it's widely supported because around 43% of websites globally are using WordPress. Whenever there's a new update to a browser like uh, Chrome or Internet Explorer or Safari, or there's an update to an operating system like Windows, Mac, or a mobile phone operating system like Android or iOS, WordPress is kept up to date by the developers. It's a nonprofit organization, and it's supported almost instantly when a new update comes out on any system globally. So you can be really assured that your website will continue to function and continue to look well on mobile devices, on desktop devices, etc. It is very widely supported as a robust community, I would say. A second benefit is you can create multiple logins for different people helping you build your website or maintain it. This is completely free and just included in WordPress, so it's a really nice feature. You can choose your own website host. So some of you who already manage a website might know you have to pay a company, usually Google or GoDaddy or another company, money every month to host your website files and serve those up to your website visitors. Now, one of the benefits of WordPress is you can choose your own host, and some are better on price, some are better on different features, some might have more advanced security measures that you need. Being able to choose your own host gives you a great amount of flexibility, which I think is a great feature. The next is that plugins to WordPress add a lot of functionality and enhancements that really can expand the features your website has. So let's say you pick a template of your website that looks great in every respect, but it doesn't have a nice video player on the home screen, and you really wanted that. You can find a plugin that will easily add that to your existing website. And many of these plugins are free, and other ones have a small monthly or annual fee. And some are free, and then you can pay to unlock other features. But there are thousands of plugins, and I'll show you how to search for and find plugins later on. And these add enhancements which makes WordPress one of the most flexible website building platforms out there. And the advantage is that if your business is small today and in 5 or 10 years it's really big, you can stay on WordPress and your website can grow with your needs. You won't need to change your website build platform. The next is that WordPress is built for search engine optimization. As I mentioned, it's maintained by a nonprofit organization, and anytime a search engine like Google or Bing or any of the others make any public updates to their algorithm, how they rank websites, how they look at websites, WordPress is on it and they have an update really quickly to make sure websites are compliant with the latest search engine optimizations. So this is a great benefit. You're assured that your website will always be as relevant as possible with the search results because WordPress has an eye on search engine optimization. And lastly, as I mentioned, there's many great themes or starting templates you can create your website with and get started. And they generally save 80 to 90% of the work in building a brand new website. So in addition to the learning curve, the only other caution I would say here is that if you're considering WordPress for the first time, there's going to be a few hours a month between 2 and 5 that you just need to spend as an administrator of your website. This will involve fixing bugs or just changing things that you notice that are inaccurate on the website, and also updating plugins and having updates happen, and updating the WordPress installation itself. And these are all very simple things to do. You essentially click a button and wait for it to say done, but you are on the hook for spending this time. So just keep in mind, it's not going to be completely hands off. There is this time every month you need to dedicate to making sure your website is running optimally. Some small business owners find even at this point of the presentation, they're thinking, oh, this maybe sounds a bit much, a bit too much that I want to take on right now more than I need. And that's completely fine. I would say 20% of websites, business owners, as we talk about their websites one-on-one, they decide they want to use a simpler platform. And Squarespace and Wix are two examples of simpler platforms that work pretty well. They don't have all the features of WordPress, but they're simpler. And if you're just looking for the most simple way to build a website quickly and then kind of forget about it, and that's just what you need, that's fine. Squarespace and Wix are slightly better for that. They're more skewed towards a simple, quick website build. And they just won't be able to grow with your company and your business online as well as WordPress will. So in 3 or 4 years, if you have a Squarespace or Wix website, and I do encounter people every single year who run into this, they've had their Squarespace or Wix website for a while and they're finding it has limitations. And they talk to me and they ask, what do I need to do? And I usually say, you need to move on to WordPress at this point because you've outgrown what Squarespace and Wix and these other cheaper, easier website platforms, what they can offer your business. And so you need to then make a rather time consuming and costly transition to build a website on WordPress. So that's the con of using one of those, is that you might have to rebuild on WordPress if you outgrow Squarespace and Wix. So hopefully now you have an idea or a sense of, is WordPress really the direction you want to be headed, or do you want to look into one of these others? Let's talk about the pros and cons of each in a little bit more detail, just so you can flesh out in your mind which platform sounds the best to you. As I mentioned, WordPress has a lot of features. It runs a large percent of the world's websites. I've already talked about the pros. The cons are a slightly steeper learning curve. You do need to spend monthly time updating plugins to make sure things like your security is up to date. One thing to keep in mind is that the WordPress software, which is maintained by a nonprofit organization, is completely free to use. The only cost you'll ever incur here with a WordPress website is the hosting fee, which I mentioned. Google is one, GoDaddy is one. I list a few others here. Bluehost is a nice one. It's very cost competitive, and SiteGround also gets really good reviews. People like it a lot. You can expect to spend around $6 to $10 per month on a mid-range cost of a host. Now, if we look at Wix, Wix offers a more drag and drop means of creating a website. It's meant for the absolute simplest way to visually build a website, and it works well. People enjoy using it. I enjoy using it. It's a lot smaller as far as its market share. Only about 4% of websites use it, but that's still millions and millions. The pros here are that it's very user friendly. It includes the hosting fee in its monthly fee. The cons are that your website, you have less flexibility, both in how it looks and how it can grow with your business's needs over time. And the pricing here starts between $17 and goes all the way up to $160 a month. So it can be much, much more expensive than WordPress, as you can see. So you're paying for the convenience, and it only really makes sense in a small minority of cases, I feel, compared to WordPress. Squarespace is another excellent platform. It's very simple, drag and drop interface. I mean, it's just If you enjoy a visual, creative way of just plopping things on a website and they all kind of snap together, it's fun, you know. It's a fun experience to build your website. It's not as flexible or robust as WordPress, so it's more like Wix. It currently runs about 2.5 of websites worldwide. And I think the cons are similar. It's just less flexible than WordPress. It's going to cost between 16 up to about $100 per month. The more features you need, you pay more. So if you need to sell e-commerce, you need to have a store with a credit card, checkout page, you're going to be paying in that 23, 39, or even $99 tier per month, depending on exactly what you need. So it can add up quickly. It can be quite expensive. Now, Shopify is another good example of a platform to build websites on that is very popular. I mean, Shopify is a great example of a website platform that really helps you integrate a physical store by offering a point of sale credit card swiping machine that automatically syncs to your online website's inventory of products. And it can track all of your sales, all of your revenue, all of your expenses, all of your taxes, all in one place for physical and digital sales. And really, only Shopify offers this out of the box. This is their core selling feature. You can, of course, find integrations and plugins in WordPress that will sync your point of sale store sales in a physical store with your digital sales. Yes, it is possible. It takes a bit more time to set up. Shopify gives you that. So the pros are that it's really e-commerce focused, integrates its payment solutions very, very well. The cons are that, of course, it just charges you more. So it starts around $25 a month, but to even get access to e-commerce, you're looking at the $65 tier. And if you need anything that goes up into, say, a monthly subscription or monthly billing, like the automatic subscription things, those prices can get up to $400 a month through a Shopify website. So it can arguably be a very expensive solution. So when you compare all the pros and cons, I feel like WordPress has a strong selling point here and why it's usually the best option if you're willing to spend the time to learn about it. So now let's learn a little bit more about it. So as we've all probably observed, AI is poking its head into many elements of our online, experience. And WordPress is also working on using AI to help you build websites in a more fun and natural way. So they have an AI website builder now where you can, chatting with the Chat GPT, you can just chat with it and it can start writing kind of code. And I would say it's in a bit of a beta test right now. It's definitely getting better. Something you can play around with, but it might not give you the final website you need at this point in time. I think maybe the end of this year or middle of next year, it'll be the default way people really build websites. We'll probably be using an AI. Right now, it's good, but it's probably not 100% ready for prime time. There's a plugin for WordPress called Jetpack that's a very popular one that has its own AI website building tool, and it can help you build your website. That's an option. And you always need to review AI output. I mean, especially if you're having it come up with AI generated images or text for your website, it can make some goofs and mistakes, and you want to double check all that before you were to launch anything AI made for your business. So as you're building and designing a WordPress website, Elementor is a editing interface. And it's the most common one. So when you're looking at the themes, and we'll look at themes here in a moment, but as you're browsing themes, many will say they use Elementor. And people wonder, what does this mean? Well, I know the screenshots at the bottom are slightly small, but the editing interface you get with Elementor is just a means of editing text and images on a website. It gives you a menu on the left with things you can add, like a video or a text box or a picture. It's currently the most popular builder plugin or slash editing interface, and it does offer quite a strong sense, like in Wix does. You can drag and drop certain elements onto your website. Currently, it has over 10 million people using it across WordPress. And just it's a simple and way to design new layouts and integrate different elements on a page. So whether you start with a page in a theme, you think, oh, it's really good, but I wish there was a new text box over in this little spot. You can use Elementor to drag a text box and rearrange. And yeah, it's used by some stats over about 30% of WordPress websites. So it's just an editing interface, and you might see that, and we'll cover that a little bit more too. And this shows how Elementor works. You select an element here on the left, and there's things like an image, a text box, a button, a spacer, and you drag it over on the right side, which is the website that you're building or customizing, and things generally snap in the right places, and you're able to customize then like the text in the box and launch the website. Another question I get asked a lot, and I want to spend a few slides on here, are what are the security practices for WordPress? How do I make sure my website is secure? So I'm going to cover that now briefly. First off, why is there a focus on security? Not just on WordPress websites, but just websites in general. Well, when it comes to WordPress, because it runs so many websites around the world, it's a target for hackers because they figure if they can find an exploit in WordPress, they have access to hacking 40% of the world's websites. So having a secure website will help protect your business's reputation, of course, the user data that's there, and ensure that it doesn't come down, it's not an interrupted, that if you're selling your products, it's always available and people can always be buying your products and generating revenue for your business. So the first way that you can make sure your WordPress website specifically is secure are the updates. Whenever you log into the WordPress dashboard, which I'll be showing in a second, you're going to see updates that are available, and you can click on a button to update your plugin or update the WordPress operating system itself. It's always a good idea to keep your plugins, and even if you have an update to your theme that you're using, keep the theme updated. If you forget to do this or neglect it for too long, which maybe is 6 months or 12 months, you might run into an issue where your website suddenly is looking odd or not working, or there's an error or a crash could even happen. So by updating them, it makes sure that you're compliant with the latest standards and everything, and that you're as secure as possible. The second recommendation is to use a strong password. By default, when you create a WordPress website, you'll be an administrator and you'll have the primary login or the super access to do anything you want. So if you choose a password that is, a common one or very weak, the risk is somebody might, or even not even a person, but really a computer bot will be trying to guess a password. And if it guesses a default or standard password, it could log in with your administrative account, which could lead to all sorts of disastrous things. So a simple solution is just use a long random password for your WordPress administrator account and just note it down somewhere. Thirdly are security plugins. So I mentioned WordPress has a lot of great plugins that add features and enhancements, and security is not neglected here. So several companies create WordPress plugins that are very good in enhancing the default security that WordPress can give you. A couple of the best ones here are WordFence, Securi, and Solid Security. And they don't just offer, well, I should say they offer a wide range of security features, everything from preventing a denial of service attack to, limiting the number of login attempts for your admin login, and many, many others. All of these plugins offer a free level of some basic security enhancements, and you can pay more on a monthly or annual basis to unlock more security. Unless you're in a strictly regulated industry like healthcare or government contracting work, generally you don't need, I'd say, really advanced levels of security for a typical business website. But I meet some clients who do need really specific security measures, and these plugins can help give that to you. And one of the other easiest ways to enhance the security, as I already mentioned, was to limit the number of login attempts specifically for that administrator login. By default, WordPress doesn't. So, some computer bot could just guess a different password every second for a year, and it'll guess a lot of passwords, and if it guesses your password, then it knows it and it logs in. So a simple way to do that is to get a plugin like one of these, which will limit the number of login attempts, to 3 every 24 hours or something, and then it will, coming from a certain computer, and then it will um, make sure that kind of thing doesn't happen of somebody just guessing your administrative password easily. And I get asked quite often, what's the difference between WordPress.org and WordPress.com? There's quite a bit of confusion, and I don't think that the WordPress organization branded this very well. So I'm going to explain the differences because there's definitely a right answer here for most of you in the meeting today, and also a wrong choice. So WordPress.org is the one that we're focused on today. It allows for your full theme support. So any of the WordPress themes from websites, which I'll show in a second, you can install on your WordPress.org website. On WordPress.com, they limit the themes you can use to some that they pre-selected, so much fewer, many fewer themes. WordPress.org gives you access to all the plugins in a plugin store, and you can install any plugin, whereas WordPress.com limits which plugins are allowed. With WordPress.org, you pay those hosting fees every month, but on WordPress.com, they're going to give you 3 GB of storage and the hosting plan for free, essentially. So it does include the hosting there for free. However, on WordPress.org, you have the full freedom to make an e-commerce website store to sell digital products, physical products. You can, integrate your payment system with a physical store and your website store and have one system for all that. It doesn't cost you any extra money to sell e-commerce on WordPress.org. But on WordPress.com, you do have to spend $45 a month to upgrade to a plan that enables e-commerce. On WordPress.org, it gives you full branding freedom. So you can make your website look exactly how you want. Even really big Fortune 100 companies use WordPress, and you would never know they're running on WordPress. On WordPress.com, it's going to say this website was built in WordPress.com, and you have to pay extra to remove that branding. So it generally doesn't look as professional if it says this website was built using WordPress.com. WordPress.org gives you access to all the SEO tools and features out there on the internet, and WordPress.com gives you only some limited SEO, or again, this is search engine optimization controls over your website. On WordPress.org, you have full analytic capabilities to install and run any kind of analytic code you want. So you could use Google Analytics, Facebook Pixel, or any of the others. Whereas WordPress.com really limits your analytics to a certain small view that they provide you only. On WordPress.org, you do the maintenance as far as running updates and making sure plugins and your theme are updated. And on WordPress.org, they take care of that for you. So there are quite a few differences, but because many of you are running businesses that need to sell e-commerce, primarily that's why WordPress.org has the biggest advantage, but also it's just as much more flexible with its plugins and theme support. Now, as I mentioned, one of the first steps in creating your WordPress.org website is finding your theme. So here are 3 places I like to go to find WordPress themes. The first one is WordPress.org itself, their own website/themes. They have a very nice list of website themes. They generally look modern. They're pretty bare bones, so they don't really come with a lot of different pages with different layouts that you might want to use for a certain purpose of your own website. They they're light, they have just a very minimal type of feel. So some businesses might be able to get away with that, but many businesses are looking for more page styles and more advanced looking websites. So I really like this next one called Theme Forest. Theme Forest has a really good collection of thousands of WordPress themes made from developers all around the world, and you can find themes in any category. So say you're creating a used car lot, you could search for used car dealer. You'll find website themes specifically tailored for creating a business, or having a business that's a used car lot. And any industry you can imagine. It's quite amazing. So there's many people who have already kind of pre-designed websites for certain industries. And again, this gives you a big jump start, getting you 80 or 90% of the way there to launching your website by picking a theme. And the next one is ColorLib, which again has a selection of both free and themes you buy. And normally the fee is pretty small, between $40 and $80 a one-time fee to purchase it. And ColorLib is another great place to go to look for a good theme. So any of these places are good. I think Theme Forest is probably my favorite, but you might find the theme you fall in love with one of these other sites as well, and that's completely fine. The process of installing the theme is the same, and I'll be walking you through that a little bit later. And so I mentioned SEO a few times already, search engine optimization. And so I want to just give you a little bit of insight into how do you fine tune your SEO for a website. And this isn't really even WordPress website specific necessarily, but it definitely applies. So why do you care about SEO? Well, SEO is the art of making your website appeal to a search engine and making it look attractive to it so it appears higher in the search result rankings. This is called the organic traffic to your website, or basically traffic you don't pay any money for. So if you're getting 100 clicks a day because you have good SEO, it's 100 potential buyers going to your website, and it's completely free. And WordPress is SEO friendly, so it's going to be compliant with any updates to search algorithms that are made public by the big companies, and this happens a couple times a year, I would say. And so you can be assured that in the back end, WordPress is making sure what it's doing is keeping your website as SEO compliant as possible. But there's some things and very important things that you should be doing on your website as you build it to help improve your SEO. These four factors are the biggest ones that influence your SEO. And the first one is the quality of your content. So this means when you have text on your homepage or a different website page, is it formatted correctly? Does it have any spelling errors or grammar errors or just unusual grammar like all caps or 100 exclamation points in a row? Things like that would raise an eyebrow to the search engines and they would say, the quality here looks a bit suspicious. We're not sure what's going on with this. So you want to make sure when you write, the text is all just very proper English spellings, normal grammar, nothing crazy. That helps to improve the quality score. The next one is the level of user engagement. This means how long your website visitors generally spend on your website. A website with longer lengths of visits tell the search engines that it's a better website for the people going there. They're more interested in it. They're finding the information they're looking for. So to increase the level of user engagement, you can have visuals. People like looking at images. You can have short videos, like 60-second videos. People will generally stick around to watch an engaging video, and that will really help boost the level of user engagement. So it's about designing your website, knowing your audience, and especially using visuals in the right way. The next factor here is the level of mobile friendliness, or does your website appear properly on mobile devices? As of this year, about 60% of website visitors are visiting it from a mobile device, a smartphone. So if your website for some reason is not working properly on mobile devices, the search engines also will know that. They'll penalize it. So any website theme you get that was made in the last 2 or 3 years is going to be very mobile friendly. You won't really have an issue, but if you have an older website that's 4 or 5 years old, at this point, it could be breaking in certain ways that will make it not work on modern smartphones. So if you're building a new website, when you look at a website theme, it's usually going to have the date it was created or last updated. And as long as that is, again, within the last year or two, you're fine here. I wouldn't pick a theme, even if you could nowadays, that was 5 years old, because it would probably be failing in some of these mobile-friendly rankings. And the last factor here is the number and the quality of inbound links coming to your website. So this is particularly important to show your website as an authoritative voice in your industry or with your product category. So for example, let's say you're selling used cars and you have 20 other websites pertaining to the car industry. Maybe it's car manufacturers or spare part makers or who knows what, but just things in that industry. And you have 20 links from those websites all going to yours. So that's a lot of inbound links coming to yours, and it's going to tell the search engines that your website is an authoritative source in this on this topic, and that'll help boost your SEO dramatically. So if you're looking to acquire inbound links, sometimes you can talk with another business owner and ask if they'll put a link to your website on theirs, and you can return the favor and put a link to their website on yours and find other ways. Maybe you can get mentioned in a local news publication or something where you can have a link to your business website there. So different ways to go about that. So if you look at these four factors and focus on them, you can help improve your SEO score and get those organic free traffic to your website. So if any of you have ever looked at a WordPress website before, and my guess is at least 25%, then you're probably going to be familiar with this screen right here because this is your WordPress dashboard where you spend a lot of time as you're building your website and also as you maintain it. Like I said, you pop in once a month and you do the maintenance items. And they haven't really changed the look and the feel this much in the last few years, so that's why it's going to be very recognizable. Over here on the left is your toolbar, and you're going to have several items listed. You might have more items than I have here in this screenshot, and that's generally because the theme you installed comes along with a few extra plugins and a few extra features, and they'll show up here. And that's completely fine. And that just depends on the theme you go with. But for this demo and this example, this is the dashboard we have and the items that we have. And some of these are always going to be here, and I'm going to walk you through what are the most important items to be aware of and show you how to use them. And the most important ones here are the media section, the pages, the appearance, and the plugins, users, and lastly, the settings. And all of these need to be properly set up before you can finish building your website and launch your website. So the first one is the media section. This is where you go to manage images on your website. You can upload here with the button up at the top. It says add new media file. You can then upload usually JPEG images, but you might also need a transparent image with a transparent background, and that would be a PNG file format. And typically those are the only two formats you would use. There's another one called WebP, which some of you might have encountered. That's kind of a newer version of JPEG that's slowly being transitioned over to, but JPEG is still the most popular. But in any case, you will drag and drop and add your images here that you plan on using on your website. And once they're here, you can swap them out on your website very easily. The next section is the pages section, and this is where you go to edit the content of the different pages on your website. Now, when you install a theme, it's going to come with pre-populated pages with kind of default or dummy content. You can see here in this example that we've got 5 pages. The home page here is currently listed as the front page. Now, what that means is that in old speak, it would have been called the index page, the index HTML page. And this is the page that by default comes up when somebody types in your domain name. Now, all the pages are optional except for this one. If you accidentally delete the front page, people will have an error message when they come to your website because the whole internet was built on this concept of there's got to be an index HTML page. So in WordPress, you can see which one that is by the little note of the front page. The rest of these you can delete, you can edit. You can also have some of them in a draft mode, like privacy policy says it's a draft. That just means you can view it and you can edit it, but it's not visible on your website to anybody else. It's just a draft. So you can publish it later if you want to. And your theme, you might find, I've seen themes that had 30, 40, or 50 pages listed here. I mean, a lot. And that's generally fine because many of them will be drafts and not visible on your website, but they can have different layouts that you might find interesting for different ideas of your website later on. And so it's no harm if you have a lot of pages here. You can choose which ones you want to use as you're building your website, and also later, if you decide you want to change the look of a page, you can use a different page that you see here to kind of re-envision the page or launch a completely new page. The next section is the theme management, and you find this under the appearance tab. This is where you go to install the theme that you found, usually on one of those third-party websites. When you buy a theme or find a free theme, it'll be in a zip file, and you'll download that to your computer, and then you will upload that zip file right here. It will unzip it, it will install it, and then it'll be an option to activate it, and then your website will be looking like this theme. So it's pretty cool. One downside is if you've built a website in one theme, you're not able to just activate a different theme and have all the content transfer over automatically. That's not going to work out. So you need to spend a good amount of time first to find the theme you really like. And then once you've found it, you can install it here and start to customize it. The next section is the plugins page, and this is where you go to find all of those plugins that I mentioned. There's a plugin store, kind of like the App Store on your phone, and I'll show you that in a moment, where you can search for and read reviews and install plugins. And so some plugins are going to be free. In fact, a lot are. Others have a small fee associated with them. You can just decide if you want to pay or if you want a free alternative. It's completely up to you. You'll see here in the screenshot that a lot of these plugins have an update available. So you can update it just by clicking the button that says Update Now. It's very easy and generally just takes a few seconds. And usually your website won't experience any downtime or interruptions when you update a plugin. And it's a good idea to keep plugins updated because you're going to have the most security, you're going to have the most compatibility with new operating systems and changes on the internet. So that's why you'd want to keep your plugins updated. And the next section are the users here. And this is where you can add new users to help you manage your website, either during its building process or after it's been built just to maintain it. You can create really an unlimited number of users here and even assign them certain roles. So you can make one person an administrator, another person a simple page editor, so they can't mess up too many things. They can only edit the content of a certain page or pages you give them access to. So it's a really nice way to give a secure means of other people to manage your website and help you build it. And lastly, we have a page for the general settings. And this is where you'll put some pretty important information like the site title and the tagline. And you might wonder, well, first off, those appear in the little tab up at the top in the browser window, but they're actually very important for your SEO as well because the SEO, the search engines, will be looking at your site title and tagline as well as the text on the website pages themselves. So you want to make sure the words you're using in the title and tagline are representing your business. Probably your business name should always be the site title. The tagline could be some of the industries you're working or the products you sell. There's other services to help you figure out how to write good taglines for the website, but essentially this is where you would put them in, as well as changing some default behaviors like the administrative email address, your time zone, etc. And so I already talked about how WordPress is a good platform to build an e-commerce store on. Now, by default, WordPress doesn't have an e-commerce infrastructure, but that's easily solved by plugins. And the most popular plugin for adding e-commerce is this one called WooCommerce. And WooCommerce is included in a lot of themes that you might find on the theme stores. So as you're looking at a theme, it might say includes WooCommerce. And what that means is that it's already that plugin is pre-installed with the theme, and it'll just come and be ready to go when you upload and install the theme. Now, WooCommerce is a particularly good plugin for e-commerce. It's running on about 20% of all WordPress websites around the world, and it's the largest e-commerce plugin for WordPress. It's the one I also use and recommend to small business clients a lot because it's so simple and widely used. It just has all the features you would need. It integrates very nicely with WordPress. It's made specifically for WordPress, and it provides you with a simple solution and interface for uploading products, changing the prices, and taking credit card payments, and specifying what your bank account is so you can receive, the payments from the credit cards. And so setting up WooCommerce is very simple. First step is there's a few settings you will configure, like what's your business name, your business's street address. The step number two will be to choose how you want to get paid. So some of you might already be using Stripe or PayPal or Square. And if you already have an account with one of those payment processors, then WooCommerce can take that and just integrate right with it. Or you might need to create an account if you want to set up credit card payment processing for the first time. It's pretty simple. And in step number three, you can configure things like your shipping method. So if you're shipping physical goods and you have a few different size boxes, you can just set your rates here and it's all remembered by WooCommerce. So things like shipping and tax are automatically calculated. And again, WooCommerce makes selling the products about as simple as it can get. So it's very easy to set up and start selling your products. Now, if you, let's just say you installed the WooCommerce plugin either manually through the store or with the theme. And you see here in the screenshot now, there's an item on the left that says WooCommerce. That will be only visible if you've installed the WooCommerce plugin. And so by adding a new product, it's easy. You just click on under WooCommerce, there's a button that says Add New. You click on Add New and you'll get to a screen like this where you'll put in your product name. You'll have a space for a product description. And you can select if it's in a category and put a price, but there's a button here that says Publish. And once you publish that, then this item you created for sale is immediately visible up on your website and people can buy it for the price that you set. Of course, in addition to just the title and the description, you can put a few other important pieces of information, a price, a sale price if it's on sale. You might not be selling a physical product, it might be a digital product, in which case you can select the box that says virtual, meaning you're not shipping anything. They're going to probably get a download link to download the digital product. So again, you can sell physical, you can sell digital. It's all quite easy to set up. Now I want to jump over to a live demo website where I'm going to walk through some of the things that we've just looked at just in a little bit more detail. So here we have over on the left the same dashboard that we were looking at with the screenshots. I'm going to take you first to the media section. So these are all of the images that are currently in the media folder on the website. So many of these, all these bottom ones, are just some default images that came with the theme. And you can go through and delete these. You probably won't reuse them. But the new images that you're putting in, that you're going to be customizing and swapping out, will generally be images up at the top. So you can see some of the images that were added. If you want to add a new image, you just click the button up at the top that says Add New Media File. And you can drag and drop or select your files right here. Now you might notice that it says maximum upload size is 2 gigabytes per file. And this is a limit set by your host. And generally speaking, it's truly big enough for any image you might need to upload. In fact, a 2 gigabyte image, as some of you probably know, is a really gigantic file in the first place. So you would never need an image bigger than 2 gigs. But this is also talking about any file size. So let's say you had a downloadable product that was a gigabyte in size. You can upload a gigabyte, but there's always going to be some sort of a limit here, just to be aware of. And the most common file formats you'll be using are JPEG and PNG. And if you try to upload a file that's in a format that's not supported, which I don't run into very often, but if you had a really weird image format, you might find an error that says this file format's not supported here, in which case you need to Google to convert that to a more standard file type like a JPEG and get the JPEG version and upload that here. But once your images are here, then you can easily swap them out on your website itself. The next section we're going to look at is the pages section, where this is where you can see all of the pages that came preloaded or pre-made with my theme. And this theme here is pretty simple. Usually, if you find a theme on themeforest.net or one of those other sites, like I said, it might have 40 or 50 pages, in which case you'll have a lot to choose from, which is great. But let's see, if I hover over any of these, I have a few different options. I have a button that says Edit, a Quick Edit, Trash, and View. Trash obviously does exactly what it says. It will delete that page. So again, you never want to trash the front page, which it lets you do, but if you do that, your website will cease to be visible. So don't do that. Edit is the default interface with this theme. Now, if you had the Elementor theme, you would have another button here right next to View that would probably say, or would say, Edit with Elementor. And that's the way you could open the Elementor editing interface, which again is a very nice way to change the content of a web page. This particular theme doesn't have Elementor. So these are the default views at the most basic level you're going to see with every theme: edit, quick edit, trash, and view. So if I want to view this page, I'll click on view, and then this is the live website. This is just how it is visible to website visitors. Now, if I want to edit the website, I can click on the edit button. And this pulls me into an interface that shows me the website, but it has a lot of other stuff. As you see, as I hover over things, I have these boxes and I have these groupings. And what is all this stuff? Well, it's because I'm in the editing interface and I can only get here if I am the administrator of the website. So from here, it's very easy to make a change. If I want to change some text, I just simply click here and I can type what I want to see. And again, I'm in an editor where anything I see I can change just by clicking on it and typing some new text or deleting some old text, etc. Now, similar with an image, if I click on an image, I'm able to quickly swap out the image by clicking over here and clicking on the change image, in which case it shows everything that was in my media library. And if I want to change the image to this guy, I just simply click it and change. And now we can see we have a new image here. Now, as I'm editing my page here, in this case, it's my home page, my index page, I can be making changes. These are not visible until I click the Save button up at the top. And as soon as I click Save, a website visitor would immediately see any changes that I made. So once you get your default theme, you'll go through and you will edit your text, you'll swap out your images, and you get it looking exactly the way you want, and then you'll click Save. In some cases, if you're in Elementor, it might say Publish here, but it does the exact same thing. So it's very easy to edit the text and the images of your website. What gets more complicated is if you want to start rearranging elements. You can find things that, you kind of break a nice layout of 3 columns, and you can inadvertently mess things up on a website. So I always recommend, if this is your first WordPress website, just go ahead and make a couple little changes at a time. Okay. Click Save, go back to where you're viewing them, refresh the page if you want, see the new changes, make sure it all looks good. I would test this both on a computer and on a mobile phone. And that way, if you made a change that, let's say you bumped these 3 images and now you made one down below and you didn't like that and you kind of messed up, you didn't know what you did, you can just go and undo here and save it, and you've only lost a couple little changes. So the absolute best advice is just make a couple little changes, one little change at a time, look at it, test it, make sure it looks good, make your other changes. It'll save you a world of hurt because often you make dozens of changes. You're really excited. You click save, you go look at it, and all of a sudden, you know, you've got things that are all out of order, and it's frustrating. So that's what you want to avoid as you're working in WordPress. That's my advice from building, well, close to 100 WordPress websites, is just make the incremental changes. It's good advice when you're doing this yourself for the first time. But because I don't want to really save these changes, I'm just going to go ahead and X out of this and just not save them here. But that's the process of editing the content of any page. So next we're going to go look at appearance. So this shows which themes are available for me to put my website on. So 3 of these, this one, and this one, came just by default. And you're always going to see this. When you first create your WordPress website, you're going to have a couple default templates that WordPress just kindly gives you here. You can use them or just ignore them. The theme that I found was this one here called Astra. And I found that on one of the 3 websites that I showed you previously. And again, you can browse those websites like ThemeForest and look at a lot of different themes until you find the one you want. But when you get that, and let's say you buy it, you'll get a zip file. And all you're going to do is you're going to click on the button that says Add New Theme. And when you do that, by the way, it shows you this list, which are those WordPress.org themes. I said they're nice. They're just very simple. They don't have a lot of pages and variations and bells and whistles. So you might find the website you love here, you might not. So If you find your website somewhere else, you're going to click on the button that says Upload Theme at the top. And then it says just upload, choose the zip file and click the install button. It's very easy. And you will then install that zip file and you will have the theme here on this page. And once it's here, you can just hover over it and click the activate button, which will kind of unzip it and install the theme. And then it'll be ready to go. You'll be able to go look at pages and have those themes pages right here, exactly as my theme has put its pages here on this site. So again, it's pretty simple. You just go to Appearance and Themes, and this is where you view and manage your themes and add your new theme right here. Next is the plugins, and I think the plugins is one of the most exciting features of WordPress because you can just add so many fe features and enhancements to your website theme that didn't come with it by default. So here we can see all the plugins that I have installed on this website. And it looks like I've been a bit negligent because a lot of them have updates. So I'll go and update those later. But you essentially just click the button that says Update Now, and it'll take a few seconds and update the plugin. So one bit of advice on plugins is if you don't know what a plugin is doing, you shouldn't be installing plugins if they don't really have a specific purpose. Because plugins have the ability to run in the background on your website. And what can happen is if you have too many plugins, they can be slowing down your website, making it load slowly, making images load slowly, or making other weird things happen. And because plugins are made by different developers, they're not necessarily all getting along. For the most part, having a dozen plugins or 20 even is fine. Most websites, it's completely fine. But I've seen several websites that had 50 or 80 plugins here. And they can start doing weird things with each other. They can start slowing down the website specifically. So this website only has 5 plugins. I think this is a great number. Try to limit the plugins you have installed to the minimum you need. I would say that's my advice. To search for and find a new plugin, just click the button at the top that says Add New Plugin. And this takes you to the plugin store. It's kind of like the App Store where they've got featured plugins, they have popular plugins, they have recommended plugins. And again, this is a lot like the App Store on your phone. I would not go in here and say, oh, this looks like an interesting plugin. I'm going to install it and see what it does. What you should do is instead find a real business necessity. You need your website to have a certain feature to enhance your business, help you generate more revenue online. At the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Once you determine a need you have, you can just search for the type of plugin and you'll find a whole list. So let's say I want e-commerce. And let's search for e-commerce plugins. So the first thing I see is the WooCommerce plugin, which we already talked about. And I had mentioned this is the most popular e-commerce plugin in WordPress. And we can see that's still accurate because of 7+ million active installs and a very high rating here. And if you want details of what this does before you install it, there's usually a button that says more details, and they'll tell you in a bullet point list what are the general things this plugin is doing. Usually, they can't describe every single thing a plugin does in the description, but they also usually have an FAQ and things like that. They have screenshots. So you can browse and decide on the best plugin for your needs right here. And many of these have a warning. Again, my updates are a bit lagging behind, so I need to update WordPress itself to new version. And I can do that just by clicking at the top of my screen. You see, it's always very easy. It's just a button to update now, and I'll do that later. So sometimes you might actually need to have an update before the plugin will work, and that's the same as on a computer or a smartphone. So that's how you find new plugins, install the plugins, and this is your list of currently installed plugins, and you can update them here. And again, when you install a plugin, usually it will add an item over here on the left. WooCommerce does. Other plugins will integrate in different parts of your website. Just depends on what they do. On the user screen is where you can view users that are created to log into your website. You can see what their role is. The administrator is the highest level role. You always will be an administrator of your own website as the business owner. And I recommend you never give that login to somebody else. Don't share your password. It's always better to create their own. And the way to do that is to click the button to add a new user. You can enter a username and an email address. You can ignore things like the first name, the last name, and the website. That's not necessary. And then you can give them a password. You can either generate it randomly or you can manually type it in. And here you select their role. So there's some options ranging from the administrator of the entire website to an editor to an author, which allows them more limited privileges, on down to things like subscriber and contributor, which you probably will never use. But you can make an administrator, an editor, or an author. And once you do that, you can click the Add New User button and they'll get an email to the email address you entered here. So it's a very easy way to give other people access to help you build and maintain your website. And the last section we'll talk about here is under Settings, you have the General tab. And this is where you set your site title and tagline. Your site icon is a little icon that shows up in the upper left-hand corner next to your site title. So if you have a logo for your business, you can upload it here. That does give you, this one is a specific image size. You can't upload something that's the wrong kind of dimension. So it tells you right here, this needs to be 512 by 512 pixels. You also can set your default administrative email address. So if there's any contacts happening in a contact form on your website, they'll go to this by default. And you can set things like your time zone. So you just want to double check this. You only need to set these things once when you build a website. Make sure they all look good. And then at the bottom, click Save Changes. So that's a brief overview of the dashboard. Of course, there's many more details you can go into on all of these pages, but in the time we have, I just wanted to at least go to that level of detail. So at this point, I'll end the presentation and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, and we can go through those. And hopefully you found this information valuable, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thanks, Cameron. We have quite a few questions, so we'll jump right in. Let's see, first question. And as always, you might have covered this, but it's always a good idea, I think, to reiterate things. So
Yeah.
let's see, first question. My website is currently on Hostinger, or I think it's what it is, and I pay monthly. Did you say that WordPress is free? Can I transfer my website from Hostinger to WordPress?
So I'm familiar with Hostinger, and that's a domain host like Google and GoDaddy. And so that's you're paying them to host your domain. So you need to pay somebody, and you might as well pay them. I've used them, and I think they're very price competitive. So you're not paying for the WordPress platform or the work that goes on behind the scenes. You're paying that hosting company to hold the files and serve those up to website visitors. So, in my opinion, unless you're unhappy with Hostinger, there's no advantage to try to transfer that to another host because they all perform exactly the same. They all just host the files. You're not paying any extra because the WordPress ecosystem, access to the plugins, installing the themes, the whole dashboard is free, and that experience is the same regardless of what host you're paying to store your website files.
Let's see. I have WordPress website hosted on GoDaddy. I have a maintenance company that was almost impossible to find back in 2023. They handle all of the updates, maintain my connection with Google via Analytics, SiteKit, to name a few things, and I depend on them. They have been bought over by a new company. I do not like the changes. How can I find a new maintenance company?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So, a company that's kind of running updates and keeping track of Google Analytics and other things, making sure your website is running optimized. It's not a recommendation that I often give, and I wouldn't say that I actually have worked with any of these companies directly. Most of the advice I give to business owners is try to learn to do it yourself because even though there's a bit of a learning curve, it's definitely within reach of every business owner to be able to log in as an administrator, click the update button. I think it's really valuable to look at your own Google Analytics and maybe look at notice other things that the company you're paying for to give you maybe monthly reports isn't noticing for you. So I know it might not be the answer you're looking for, but my advice would be try to take control yourself. I know it's been years and you were happy with what was happening in the past, but if you take control yourself, you'll have the ultimate flexibility and insight into how to tweak and optimize things even further. Because at the end of the day, any company doesn't understand your business and your customers as well as you do. So you can maybe find insights that they would just ignore. And this is the same advice I give to all new business owners creating WordPress websites is not to rely on a company to really manage any facet of your website. Try to learn to do that yourself from the beginning. So that would be my advice. And I don't, unfortunately, have a recommendation for a management company like that. It's not a typical company I interact with. I interact with people who do digital marketing or different aspects of running an online business. But as far as that management piece goes, there's not a referral I can give you, unfortunately.
Thanks, Cameron. Next question. Can we connect a WordPress website to a payment system such as Stripe or any other payment system like Shopify?
Yes. And the answer is yes. So connecting it with Stripe, for example, you probably use the WooCommerce plugin. Because your goal would be to sell products on your website, and it sounds like you already have a Stripe account. And so what WooCommerce would do would be to give you pages for the checkout shopping cart page, the credit card page to put in your credit card information, and they will connect to your Stripe account. And so they'll allow you to sell products on your website using your existing Stripe account. So that's the simplest way to do it. There are other e-commerce plugins you can search for and maybe find a different one, but WooCommerce is the one that works for 95% of small businesses that I come across with, interact with, and they're happy with it. So that would be my recommendation.
This is a two-part. The first question came in early on, but then I think you answered the question, but I'm
Mhm.
just going to read them together. I'm having difficulty plugging in AI demos into my WordPress website. Do I need to code it first? And if so, what app should I be using? Followed by, so I believe my problem is answered due to having WordPress.com versus
Mm,
WordPress.org.
mm.
Being I'm limited to the plugin and unable to install my AI demo video with my AI Done app. Would you recommend an AI app such as Lovable to build since WordPress is currently in beta testing phase to evolve with AI?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of questions there, but sounds like a big problem is yes, WordPress.com, because it doesn't allow you to install mini plugins, really, it limits it quite severely. Sounds like the plugin you need for your AI video isn't available. So, yes, that's a hard stop. It'll never work in WordPress.com. As far as using WordPress.org's kind of AI features to help you design websites, it is in beta, but I would also say every other one is in beta. You'll see a company, I think you mentioned one called Lovelace or similar. There are dozens of companies that build websites based on AI prompts, but they're all in beta. There's not one that's like done and the rest are not there yet. WordPress is probably as good as anything else. But if they're being honest, they're gonna say, we're in beta with this because all of AI is kind of still evolving quickly. So nothing's really totally out of beta. So if you like using AI to help design websites, yeah, I think you should go for it. I think that's a good skill to have because that's the way this industry is headed. But WordPress.com isn't going to work. I know its limitations. It won't allow you to have a plugin to kind of integrate any of that stuff. So I would create a hosting account for WordPress.org. If you have an existing domain name, you could connect it, or you could buy a new domain name for like $10 a year if you want to experiment and see how the AI website building is working in WordPress.org. And before you commit and maybe move your existing domain to that hosting plan, because you can move a WordPress.com domain that's hosted there, you can move it to a WordPress.org host like Hostinger, Google, GoDaddy, or any of those other hosts. So I know there's probably a lot of nuances there, and you might have a lot more questions. So if you have any follow-up questions on that, because there's so much detail involved, why don't you send us an email at help@virginiasbdc.org. You can mention you had a follow-up question for me. I'll get the email, and then I can maybe help advise you further on all the intermediate steps from getting to point A to point B.
Great, thanks. Can you talk about AEO and how it can be used in conjunction with SEO? And is WordPress AEO?
I have to admit, I'm not familiar with the acronym AEO. I probably should be, but yeah, so yeah, I'm not really up to date on what that is. But if you want to rephrase the question or give more details, you could.
Okay,
Or again, if you want to send us an email, we could follow up on that and talk about it one-on-one. Might be best.
great. Let's see. How long can you archive a site before you transfer it to a different website?
Archive a site. I guess I'm not sure what you're referring to exactly. You can have a page in draft mode, which is kind of like the page is archived, but I'm not sure if you're referring to something else. It sounds like you're referring to the entire website. So maybe you just want to
That
clarify that
sounds
for
like,
us.
yeah, I'll ask if you want to follow up on that, if you can type us a little bit more information for that question. Let's see, next question. Um, what different things can we expect to have to pay for? What will be one-time expenses? What will be ongoing expenses? And is there a fee to use WordPress or plugins like WooCommerce free?
All right, great question. So as far as all of the expenses, what you're looking at is the hosting fee. And let's say you pick a cheap, inexpensive host, $6 a month. You're going to have to buy your domain name and renew that every year, and that's around $10 to $20 a year. In addition to that, your next expense will probably be an email. So if you want an email address at your domain name, you can get that through Google, which gives you Google Workplace and all the Google apps for your business, and that's about $8 a month. The cheapest email you can get at your domain name is about $1 a month. And you can get that last time I looked through a company called Zoho, ZOHO.com. But it's a very basic email platform, but it does email and that's it. So that's another cost. And so there's a question about the total cost, and there's a kind of a second part to the question. I
Yeah,
forget.
let's see. Um, is there a fee to use WordPress? Are plugins like WooCommerce free?
Yeah, so WooCommerce using WooCommerce is going to be free, but I know that they have add-on packages. So one of them is a subscription. So some businesses I work with have a monthly subscription they want to sell to people. WooCommerce is happy to let you have a subscription on your website, but they're going to charge you. I believe that was like $50 a year, and that kind of unlocks monthly recurring subscriptions on WooCommerce. So WooCommerce has things you can pay for in addition to the base package. So essentially that's how they make their money, right? It's going to be if you unlock certain things. And I would say most people don't need to, but the subscriptions is one that I've seen come up quite frequently. So you can, if you know, you can find a list of all the upgrades to the base WooCommerce and what they all cost, and that will give you an idea of if you're looking for something in specific, you might say, oh, that's the one I need, and it'll cost this much per year. In addition to that, I think WooCommerce, they're they're managing the credit card processing, which is about a 2.5% fee roughly, and that everybody gets a cut. The originating bank gets a little, the destination bank gets a little, any middlemen take a little cut for the payment processing. WooCommerce might take a small cut, like 0.1%. I don't, I'm not entirely sure. So that would be kind of a fee you'd pay them, but you're paying somebody because whoever is doing your credit card payment processing is taking that credit card fee anyway. So, but WooCommerce generally is very cost competitive. And other than that, if you have other plugins you're running that you need, they could have a fee. It just depends on what your website needs to be doing and what plugins you have there.
So we have about 15 minutes and just as many questions. So let's see how many we can
Mhm.
get through.
Okay.
Let's see. What are things only the admin may do, but authors and editors cannot?
Yeah, so that's a great question. There's a lot of different bullet points, like this is what admins can do, the editors, the author. So I won't go through them all now. But admins can create other users. They can install and update plugins. They can install and update themes. They can delete pages. Those are mainly things nobody else can do because they could obviously mess things up if you had a malicious person or just an ignorant person accidentally did this. But to find a full list, I would just Google it or ask your favorite AI what the breakdown is because every 6 months or so they might be rearranging and adjusting the permissions or updating that list. So to find the most current list, I would just look online.
Let's see. Another one here is your presentation was excellent as usual. Which source would you recommend to get in-depth training on how to create the website so I could get started?
Yeah, so if you're looking to go deeper, there's a lot of great YouTube videos, and I don't really have a source or a video creator I'd recommend, but you can find kind of a building your first website tutorial 101, and there are often several videos in a series. They can get really in depth. They can be hours of content, and it'll show you absolutely every little thing you need to do. Of course, the caveat is you might be doing things outside of their scope because they're thinking websites are going to be this and you need this. And so all of a sudden you have something they're not covering. But there's always resources, either the SBDC, and I'm also happy to help and guide you through some of the process if you have questions. So feel free, you can reach out on the email on the screen, and I'd be happy to help if I can.
Absolutely. Next question. My website is professionally built and managed. However, I often wonder if there are any tips I should learn or know about as the owner. The administrator's company sends me the monthly analytics report. I'm not tech savvy and I have the duties of building the business.
Right. So I guess the question is what are you wanting to learn or what information are you wanting to get that you don't currently? It's possible that the company you pay is can send you other reports or give you other data if you ask for it. So one place to start might be asking them, what else can you be giving me? Just like kind of how you asked me, but I'm not sure, I'm not really sure what they do or what they might be able to provide. Um, yeah, but if you're the business owner and you don't want to maintain the business yourself full time, then probably you want to keep that company and rely on them. So I would reach out to them and ask. But in addition to the analytics, I mean, obviously the most important thing for you is your sales, right? So what are your sales trends? Are you selling the products that you expect to sell? What's selling the best and the worst? Maybe you can look at the data and brainstorm new product ideas. Those would be things I think as a business owner you'd want to focus on is increasing your revenue, increasing the number of website sales. Another thing is if you haven't already, be running paid ads or doing online social media marketing. Like if you're doing those activities, how well are they working? Because that's a whole, often a business will have a whole social media marketer or somebody running their paid ads. So are you doing any of that? And if not, maybe you should look into that as a way to generate more sales through your website. And that would be a good thing from a strategic point of view as the business owner for you to focus on launching into that if you're not currently doing it. So those are a couple of thoughts.
And Cameron gives us some wonderful webinars on that throughout the year.
Yeah.
So, um, next question. How do I know if my website fonts and appearance work well for SEO?
So there's Google has their own tool they make to the public, which will look at it from their own point of view and kind of give you a score. Um, I believe it's called Google Site Review or Page Review. They change the name every now and then, but look it up. I think it's called Google Page Review. You should find it. It'll basically say, put your website link here. It'll scan it. It'll look at every little thing. It'll look at your images, your text. It'll look at the headers. It'll look, all the different stuff. And it'll give you a kind of a score. And it'll say, oh, these things are red. They're really hurting your SEO. And they'll say, these things are good. They're fine. It'll tell you if it's mobile ready. And so that's probably what you need to look at. And Google has their own tool for that. It's free. So just check that out. And then the real challenge is it'll give you detailed technical information of like, oh, you're missing certain ID tags in here, and you might not know how to fix it. And so there's of course companies out there who can um, look at a report like that and take the action needed to fix it, depending on what's needed. You can also, if you want to get in contact with me and let me know kind of what is the recommendations are, I can give you some feedback on these are okay to ignore or these are easy fixes. It all depends. If you have a big budget, you can probably fix them all. Many businesses don't have a huge budget for this, so it's really what's the lowest hanging fruit for you to get the most return on your investment to fix any website issues or to keep it up to speed.
Let's see, another question. Can WordPress work with digital media to automate marketing?
WordPress, it, yeah, I mean, when you're talking about automating marketing, no, there's not really a thing in WordPress that automates your marketing. No, especially if you're talking about like social media marketing or paid ads, like I was just discussing, those need to be really thoughtfully researched for the campaigns, the keywords you're using, any images. Of course, you should do that strategy in conjunction with your website, like what text is on your website, what images are there. You should have your brand represented in your online marketing, but there's no automation that's going to do that. It'll be, someone with experience with online marketing will look at that and give you a strategy and help you implement that, or you yourself as a business owner should do that, but there's not an automation to do that, no.
So next question. First, they say e-commerce plugins would only truly be useful for websites when you have a physical product to sell. Is that correct? And they go on to say, would it be necessary for contracting websites?
So e-commerce plugins are fine if you're selling a digital. So contracting websites, this often comes up if you're a service-based provider, like a consultant, right? Maybe you're selling a package. It's like a $500 package, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000. You can definitely sell that with WooCommerce. I mean, that's the whole point. They have the selection box there that says this is a virtual or maybe a digital product. And you can be a one-off package just like that. You can even have, like I said, the reoccurring subscription packages if you want to pay to enable that. So it's completely fine to sell a digital package as a consultant or professional service provider. That's very easily done. I think it's a big use case for those types of businesses. They would have WooCommerce taking the payment, and they would get paid for that just like normal. And it's very easy to set up.
Great. Let's see. May I create a WordPress site without severe use of AI? They're trying to avoid AI as much as possible.
Yeah, the answer is definitely. I mentioned AI briefly because almost all website editing tools and platforms are seeing how they can integrate AI to make it a better experience. But because WordPress has been around so long, well before AI, it's already all set up to make a website without AI. Everything I showed you today through the menus had no element of AI at all. So, even today, the process would be not using any AI, but I think next year at this time will probably be a different story. I think then it'll just be the most common thing to use an AI to write code and build your website really custom. It's almost ready, just not quite. So yes, right now it's definitely feasible. In fact, that's what I recommend. So use WordPress like I explained, not relying on AI. You could, use AI to help brainstorm text you want or edit your text or maybe create an AI image if you're into that, but you don't need to rely on it to make a WordPress website.
Let's see. I have WordPress.org. What are a few highly recommended plugins to have?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the thing is, I would first find a business objective. Like think about what is your website currently doing and what does it need to do differently or better to help you increase your online sales? If you can't find a need that your website currently is not fulfilling that you do need, then I wouldn't worry about expanding its functionality or installing plugins. Plugins can't really solve a problem unless you first identified the problem or the need. So I think I'll just leave it at that because I do find people who install plugins and they don't really understand how they're going to be needed or what they're for. And then you can find yourself in the situation where you might have a lot running in the background, and that can lead to a slow website over time. And so the best prep policy is just to avoid unnecessary plugins, really find what the need is first, and then do a search and see what plugins are available to solve that business need.
What level of security would you recommend for government contracting websites?
Well, that's a great question. And different types of government contracting have different regulations. Of course, it's a highly regulated field, as like the medical field. So, the first thing would be to get as detailed specifications as possible from the government agency you're working with. about what their policies are as far as the data security, encryption, it's going to be a big thing, data security, encryption, privacy policy, and all of that. See what their regulations are first. Any of the um, privacy plugins I mentioned, which you'll get a copy of this presentation. And by the way, those are links. You can just jump right to them and read more. But all of those have quite advanced security features that probably cover most government situations. So the first thing is figure out exactly what they need. Second thing, I would research those different plugins and see which one is the best fit, and also how much does it cost. Because if one says we'll do these security things. Maybe it's free, or maybe it's $10 a month. And another one wants like 50 or $100 a month to do similar security things. You obviously can pick the lower cost option as long as is meeting your needs.
Let's see. Question. This is a little bit long, so if I need to reread it, I will. My WordPress website is managed by GoDaddy, and I've noticed that I sometimes have multiple pages that appear to contain the same or very similar content. How can I determine which page is the live page that visitors actually see and which one I should edit? Are there best practices or tools within WordPress to identify duplicate or unused pages without making changes? They go on to say they also have a beaver builder, and how does that work with WordPress?
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. So it sounds like you have duplicate pages on your website, but you're not sure which is the live one, which is almost a bit confusing because if you're seeing multiple pages that are similar, they're all live, if that makes sense, right? They're all live if you can see them as a normal website visitor. So it just sounds like you might have duplicate pages. It's probably something I would have to actually look at to figure out. I'm not sure at this point. It's not a really common thing, but I'm sure there's an answer. So if you want to contact us, I could maybe get some more information and take a look myself and provide you my thoughts on that.
Okay, great, thanks. Earlier, when the question was about archiving a site and how
Hmm.
long, it was
Yeah.
for the entire site. So I don't know if,
Hmm. Well, that's okay. It's not something that I don't run into that situation very much. If you have a domain name and you want to pay for it forever and never have a website, that's fine. You can just own the domain name. You never need a website there. So in that sense, you've archived, you own the domain, but there's nothing there. And that can go on forever. Their companies are happy to take your money. But if you
Mhm.
have a website, you have all the pages, you have all the text and the images, everything's ready, but you want to just keep it like archived, not in public for a long time, uh, it's fine. You're just going to pay the hosting fee to host those files kind of in the preview mode or in the draft mode. So nothing's visible, but you're going to pay the host. It's $6 a month. And you're going to pay around $20 a year to own that domain name. So if you pay those two fees, you can have your website in stasis indefinitely. Nobody would care. So I think that answers your question, but if I'm missing anything, let me know.
And then the other question that with the SEO and AEO, AEO, answer engine optimization.
Oh, I think that's maybe a term that's being used with AI when AI
Mhm.
gives its summaries at the top. Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's a big question of is SEO going to even be important anymore if everybody's getting their information from the AI summaries, they're not even clicking on the website. What difference does having a good SEO on the website make? So it's an evolving topic. And I'm not sure anybody has a definite answer, even Google and Microsoft, who kind of run the search engines. Like everybody's still figuring this out. But there is a school of thought that says it's more important to make your websites look good for AI so that AI will put summarize your information from your website. It's crazy. So it's kind of like what's next after SEO. I won't get into it today because it's all very theoretical and nobody knows what's happening. I don't really have a definite guideline on this AEO, this AI search engine stuff, but it's an interesting topic and something I think we should all keep our eye on and see because I think in a year there'll be more definitive guidance in the industry of, well, what is a best practice for the small business? But right now, even companies like Google, every month they're talking about it, they're changing their stuff, they're figuring it out. So I don't have a definitive voice on that topic right now.
That makes sense. We did it. We got through all the questions and we are at time. So Cameron, thank you so much for another valuable webinar with us. I want to thank everyone who joined us today and remind you that you will receive an email with a link to the recording and to the slides. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, you can visit virginiasbdc.org/training. This webinar and other SBD resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for a free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiasbdc.org or via our website. Anyway, I'm looking at the questions. So we had one question to register for the next webinar. You can go to the Virginia SBDC website, and that will actually also be in the follow-up email. And we hope you can join us for the next webinar. And we're getting a lot of thanks, Cameron, coming in. So, and I agree. Thank you. And we hope to see you all in our next session. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Bye bye.